Hi folks, this is Mike Callahan from Four Leaf Properties. This is installment number 3 of our development playbook. Today we're going to talk about the approval process for manufactured housing. This would be assuming you're walking into a piece of real estate that either is maybe zoned for manufactured housing currently or isn't zoned at all. The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to have to go in front of the Planning Commission. This will be the local organization that's responsible for kind of taking the first glance at any development project. And what you should be prepared for at this point is you're probably going to spend somewhere between, I don't know, $2,000 and $5,000. You're going to get yourself a real rudimentary engineering drawing of some sort. It may be, something as complicated as this or as sophisticated as this, or it may be just a simple kind of pencil drawing. Sometimes they're colored, sometimes they're black and white. Sometimes there's specific guidance that the local commission will give you. But at the end of the day, you're going to spend a little bit of money there, and you're going to develop your story. And this is really important in the process, especially right out of the box with the Planning Commission. You want to convince the Planning Commission that there's a lot of efficacy to your program. There's a reason why manufactured housing is the right solution. So you have to do your homework. You have to know what your average housing price is going to be relative to the market. You need to look at what your community is going to bring in. These additional home sites are going to bring into the local community in terms of dollars and cents. How much are people going to make and how much is going to flow back into the local economy. Be prepared for conversations about, the local school system. What's the impact going to be on the school system? On a positive note, hopefully you're hooking up to the local water and sewer. Well, what's the impact going to be to them when all these people are paying for water and sewer? All these sorts of things are going to go into that Planning Commission initial meeting. It's really the story, though, that's very, very important, because the next thing that's going to happen is, let's say you get an approval and they say, okay, and by and large, by the way, you should be able to get past this first step. They should at least be saying, okay, let's move forward, assuming that your story is good. You now want to work on influencers. And this is very, very, very important for you. Between the time that you go to Planning Commission the first time, and by the time you're eventually going to get to a public hearing, you need to work the local community. You need to know who are the folks at the newspapers, who are the folks in the school system, who are the folks who need local folks to actually live in the community because they're looking for employment. You're going to potentially even meet with some of these folks at the Planning Commission outside of their official capacity to talk to them, your local neighbors. You gotta work the system. Trust me, you do not want to go to this next step, which is the public hearing, without knowing with some degree of certainty that these folks are going to be on your side. Now, the reality is, when you get to a public hearing, you've probably gone through a couple iterations of this with the Planning Commission. Sometimes there's sort of an informal, sort of a closed meeting, and then there's the public meeting itself. Sometimes it might be 2 or 3 steps. And in between, what's happened? Well, by the time you get from here to here, you've probably hired an engineer, okay? And at this point, and you probably hired an architect too. And at this point, you've taken that fairly rudimentary plan and you've turned it into something that's a little more sophisticated. Again, now you're down to the point of being able to perhaps understand exactly where your roads are going to go and exactly where your water and sewer is going to be hooked up to. You're going to need to be pretty far down the line before you get to that public hearing because a lot of those questions are going to come up. Let's assume you go to your public hearing and you get a thumbs up from your local Planning Commission. Now, more than likely, you're going to be going to a city council or perhaps this might be even at the, not at the city level, but it might be at the county level as well. This second step typically is not nearly as difficult as this one. This is where you're going to spend your money. This is where you're going to spend your time. It may actually take you as long as 6 months to get through this Planning Commission process. You may go back 2 or 3 times. You may go through the first time. They may give you some criteria. You might go to a public hearing. They may kick you back again. But you're going to fight your battles up here. By the time you get to the city council, you should be pretty far down the line. You get your approval there. Now, at this point, you have to go get all your entitlements. So in series number 2, I talked about the entitlements, but this is where you're going to have to go to each of the agencies that are involved in getting you approval and make sure that all the elements of this plan really work. And it's more of a technical kind of review than anything else. And from there, you're going down to the state, hopefully, you're gaining your approval. Again, this process probably 6 months. This process maybe just a few months, if not even 30 days. And then by the time you get down to city council and state, depending upon your state, you might be another 3 to 6 months at that point. So we typically look at the whole process these days as 12 to 15 months beginning to end. Have any questions or want to talk it through? Mike Callahan, reach out to me at Four Leaf Properties. Thanks.